Atheist Nomads, episode 262, Mystical Conspiracies.
The podcast you're about to listen to includes cursing and talking about hoo-haws. Please be advised.
I just kissed the microphone. I'm so used to kissing her head, and the microphone was in the way.
Welcome to another episode of Atheist Nomads. I am Dustin. Joining me as usual is Lauren.
Hello.
Who spoke before announced.
I know.
And we have Mikey back.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Oh man, it's going good.
That's fantastic.
It was supposed to be 103 today, and it only got up to 90 something.
98.
98.
Oh,
so
that's so much better.
Oh yeah.
God,
yeah.
5 degrees at that level though makes
Oh yeah, totally.
Makes a huge. I was gonna go fry an egg, but didn't want to waste the egg.
Now, of course, the reason it didn't get as hot
And attract
is
raccoons.
the smoke.
Yeah, the smoke has covered up the sun, brought down the degrees, and it's nice for anybody who's not an asthmatic.
I am.
Yeah.
I've had it.
I'm asthmatic.
Yeah.
You're asthmatic.
Yeah.
They were both asthmatic.
We're both. I got my nebulizer
Killing
in my
it.
cupboard,
Mm-hmm.
my albuterol
The
by my
pro air.
side.
Yeah, when you look at the map, it basically all the smoke from the fires in Southern Oregon and Northern California seem to all be getting funneled right to Boise.
Oh yeah.
Periodically, it then moves on over to Idaho Falls, but it seems to all come here.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
the smoke from my hometown is clogging up the air in my new town.
Aw.
Oh, is that a metaphor?
It
No,
is.
that is literal.
No, it is a
Literally, the
metaphor.
ring of fire
The
around
dark
Grants
cloud.
Pass is blowing smoke to here.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
In general, if you've never lived in a city that has this kind of smoke aggregation,
Oh yeah, the
it's
bowl.
it's the only natural disaster we have. So, like, I don't want to seem like our winters are cold, but they're not
Oh
disastrous.
no, I can't get out of my driveway because
Yeah.
of all the slush.
Well, I mean, but we don't have ice storms. We don't have
No.
hurricanes. We really don't have tornadoes.
No.
It's just the occasional hot day,
Yeah.
And,
you can't breathe for like 2 months, but that's fine.
Yeah. Oh, and actually, Mikey, we haven't talked about you. How have you been? It's been
Oh, fine.
6 weeks?
Okay, it's really difficult to remember what I was up to 6 weeks ago because I have no control over my life. I was on a podcast episode.
you are a leaf in the wind.
Well, I'm not flighty. Flighty's not the word. I am temperamental, like on my moods. I started a job as an AmeriCorps Vista for a local property management group that manages properties for low-income housing units in 7 states. And as a Vista, my goal is to help overcome poverty. And there's mission statements. It's an old LBJ socialist program that it's very similar to like other ones, except it's only a year. They tie your wage to the poverty level, so you're broke the whole time. And most AmeriCorps Vista jobs, you're not even allowed to get a second job.
No, you're not.
Yeah, but my boss is pretty cool. The minimum hours is 35, so that's what she expects from us. And on the side note, I am now officially a government employee, so if there is a government shutdown, they expect us to keep working without pay.
Oh, nice.
And there's no one to talk to because the people who we would talk to about that also go on furlough, and they don't have to come into work.
Yep. And Trump has promised a government shutdown.
He just got around to that threat, yeah.
And has said that he doesn't care what the political consequences are.
Well, he never cared.
So he will shut down the government October 1st, even if it means losing the House and Senate on November 3 or 4 or whatever it is.
Yeah, he's got some impulse control problems.
Yeah, speaking of temperamental, geez.
Right.
You're freaking zen compared to that guy.
Well, I'm on new medication right now. I take Seroquel,
That
which helps me sleep at night, unless I don't take it, and then I'm up all night. And it's a mood stabilizing drug that seems to be working out for me. Slowly upping my intake, but yeah. So obviously I'm in treatment, so there's that.
Hey, high five, air five.
Well, and by treatment I mean I go to a sliding scale place because I'm technically in poverty. And
thanks, AmeriCorps.
Well, well, I mean,
better than nothing.
Saving it makes it. The problem with social programs is there's very little room in Congress for social programs to go through. So there's just so much. You have to work so hard to get the smallest incremental change. I mean, you look how much they fought the idea of trying to make the ACA functional, and it's a good concept too to try to fix the healthcare system. Anything's like that. So the goal of the program to alleviate poverty, and mind you, I'm approaching this with, I think, a very pragmatic, nihilistic attitude. I'm doing what I can to help, but I mean, poverty's just this gigantic mountain, and you only have a teaspoon, and you kind of have to rely on the concerted efforts of everyone to just help the top percentage of people who are trying to it's because, like, if poverty is a ladder, I'm literally dealing with people who don't speak English, who have no job seeking skills and have no access to computers. Imagine looking for a job now and not knowing the language or having access to computers. You're not stealing anyone's job, and it's our job to try to give them the tools that they can use to be in a different category of poverty, because we're so far, we're at the basement.
Because you're just shuffling poverty levels.
Yeah, the only thing lower than this is homelessness.
Yeah.
And a lot of these people were and have been homeless. Many of the refugee families have been in camps for many years, and they lose a lot of skills or never gain them, depending on their age, on feeding and clothing themselves. And then they're shuffled to a very capitalistic society like ours, where they're expected to do this for this to get not much. Mm-hmm. And so it is difficult, you just have to be, and I'm just new. What do I know?
Yeah.
But we're always in crisis mode. We're doing a backpack drive for low-income kids going back to school, getting them backpacks, which is actually you can donate to.
Yay!
Go to Stepping Stones. We have a Facebook page, Stepping Stones. There's so many Stepping Stones. What's the one in Boise?
I'll put a link in the show notes.
I just took over the Facebook page. We have 75. I work with a bunch of boomers who are not social media literate.
Oh,
and
fun.
They're not anti it. They're just like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. Like so. And I am still on a break from stand-up, but I have been approached with, and I'm working on a bunch of writing projects and stuff.
Oh, that's fun.
Nice.
Yeah, one of my friends was a producer in LA, and now he's back, and he wants to create some content. Now, we were friends before he moved. So yeah, we'll see.
Nice.
I mean, in the entertainment industry, in a small town like this, you just try to do as much as you can, and then whatever happens, happens. Mm-hmm. Some things work, some things don't. I mean, I'm sure it's like that everywhere, but and I'm just happy to do some stuff that's not, just stand up, which has been kind of one note for a long time.
Nice.
But other than that, fine. I have a dog still and a cat.
Life is good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to dusting off the degree. The term mysticism has been around since at least classical Greece, but the practice definitely dates back much earlier, and I suspect it predates religion itself. Historically, its definition has shifted, and in modern times, it's controversial. Roman Catholics are currently preferring the term mystical theology.
Well, are they considered mystical? Otherwise, who cares what they think it should be called?
They're one of the main centers of mysticism.
Oh, okay.
They're also debating as to whether it should be a general experience of all good Christians, or if only a few select extra good Christians should be getting mystical experiences. Anyway, that's
eat some peyote.
Exactly.
So, but generally speaking, mysticism is finding oneness with the divine or the absolute. And this is through altered states of mind.
Yeah, but it's kind of cyclic, isn't it? If you take any of those, you feel like you're more at one with things anyway.
Uh-huh.
So it's like, okay, sure.
If you believe that's what you're going to experience, you're probably going to experience that.
I'd experience that every time we go camping. Does that make me a mystic?
Well, I mean, it's
a
like,
woodland mystic?
If you take like acid, a lot of that breaks down the filters and barriers in the way that you codify the universe, and you can start to see connections that don't exist. And it's really easy to put together patterns of relationships between everything, because everything is connected on a level. And even when you're educated, and you start to dabble in like quantum books and stuff like that with all this heady stuff, and you get really messed up, you're like, oh yeah, man, it is all wavelengths of energy. And you're right.
Yeah.
So I get it. Like, 10,000 years ago, if we were, smoking some plant or whatever, and around a campfire, and our most advanced, civilization was the rock hitting another rock. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely oneness.
So in some cases, this is called enlightenment.
Seems so cocky.
Right? It seems like they're trying to own something that's almost a universal, like, human experience.
Mystical and enlightenment are the same thing. It's just for different traditions.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I think we're having a loose definition of enlightenment, though.
Metaphysical enlightenment is mysticism, as opposed to, like, Renaissance enlightenment, which was a different thing. But anyway, we will continue. We will get there
please
better.
do.
You'll find mystics in virtually all religions.
Mm-hmm.
In Islam, it's most commonly found in Sufism. In Judaism, it's Kabbalah and Merkabah. In Christianity...
That was the one that Madonna did, right? Kabbalah?
She did Kabbalah, yeah. And in Christianity, it's Roman Catholicism, the Eastern Orthodox Church, and Pentecostals. Possibly Mormons. I'm not so sure on that one.
Pentecostals use a heightened emotional state through group emotional manipulation and music. I was a part of that movement, but yeah, it is altered state.
Oh yeah.
They don't recognize it as such.
But it is mysticism.
But it's mass hysteria, which is how they do those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't call it mysticism, but it is mysticism.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, but it's definitely in an altered state.
And then in Buddhism, Hinduism, and Jainism, it's called enlightenment, but it's still mysticism. And then you get to a lot of the New Age religions where mysticism is basically the core. It's becoming one with the world or nature or Gaia or the gods or the spirits or the universe. So now how people attain these altered states varies, and fasting is probably the most common. And we talked about that in length a few weeks ago. But other forms of ascetic practice, especially extreme exposure to heat, cold, or the sun, can be sufficient.
Yeah.
Yeah, you screw up the brain and you're going to start seeing stuff. Meditation in Eastern religions has the goal of enlightenment. So if you reach a certain point of training your mind, you can get your mind to the point of being able to change your own mental state.
Convenient.
Uh-huh.
Sounds like a lot of work, though.
Oh, it really is.
It pretty much takes a lifetime of study.
Yeah, right.
And by that point, you probably
to achieve what I do every afternoon.
And by that point, you probably have some dementia setting in, so...
Just stare at the wall and just let your mind go blank.
Right.
And then in some traditional religions, such as the Native American religions and many of the New Age religions, they will use plant medicine, which is more commonly known as psychedelics, such as peyote or ayahuasca. If you want to learn more about ayahuasca, Ross and Carrie did a ayahuasca experience on Oh No, Ross and Carrie.
Is that still not illegal, right?
It is illegal unless it is part of a religious thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So there are places where you can do it, but don't do it if you are taking any medications that impact serotonin.
Oh, great.
So if you are on SSRI...
So the people who need it most can't...
Yeah, because if you are on an SSRI, it creates a very high chance of creating...
death?
Well, by high chance, they just mean a noticeable bump up in statistical probability.
No, it's basically guaranteed. You take ayahuasca, it is going to... It simulates serotonin in your brain, and if you're on a serotonin reuptake inhibitor, you're going to have runaway serotonin levels, and you're going to get serotonin syndrome and probably die.
Yeah, they say not to drink when you're on Molly, but I'm still here.
You defy all logic.
That's a little different.
I also don't get hangovers.
That would be okay. So that would be more like if you were on a major liver function suppressor and drinking huge amounts. My liver's
fine, and my kidneys are fine too. We test them because I have diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
You sound so shocked.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, it is weird
how
because
is that
like
healthy?
Things like my eyeballs are going for no reason. I use my eyes all the time, so sure, whatever. I have what they call the nerd eye, where I don't focus on things that aren't right in front of my face, so my eyesight just goes to crap. And it's just weaker. But, like, the organs that filter, despite everything I've done to myself, fine, totally fine.
Okay.
My heart's fine.
Nice.
Lungs, shut. And I haven't done anything to them.
Yeah. All right.
2 packs of cigarettes a day for 10 years. But other than that, I did nothing. Nothing.
Music.
Bitches hold a grudge.
Right.
Music and prayer can be enough to change mind states.
Oh, 100%.
Like in the case of Pentecostals.
Yeah. That was a serious cool trip, dude.
You can watch it happen with as people work themselves up until they reach that point where things just aren't right.
Where,
Well,
is that
I mean,
when they
altered.
start speaking in tongues?
That's an
and
intentional.
flopping around and
I have jokes about this. I like a lot of people who used to do that. I was faking it every time because why wouldn't you? But
because everybody else was too.
well, I mean, it's difficult. We run into the zombie problem there. Like, what really is going on in someone's head? But it is a cultural phenomenon. There is an altered state. You can learn to achieve it. When I was really young, it seemed elusive. But when you're when you're young and you're trying to put your your mind around things. But once you're at a certain age and you've been in the culture a long time, it's not abnormal to watch people collapse in the spirit, or in some churches, they run around the church as a way of burning off energy. And it's because these people have entered in an altered state where that's a thing that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels different. And, plus, remind you that you're surrounded by people who are all singing the same music. And like many of them might be chanting or also speaking in tongues. And it's very visceral. Like, if you've never been a part of it, it is a very emotional experience. And if you believe, as they do, that the Spirit of God can enter you, it's very easy to shortcut into what they're doing. I never felt right. But
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that they don't. Like at a certain point, pretty young, when I was a teenager, I just stopped believing in it.
Yeah. I had one experience at a church service on campus. It was a student-led service for students.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very emotionally charged, lots of music.
Yeah.
Lots of very powerful, high-energy music. And I reached a point where my mental states changed.
Yeah.
And I was only able to replicate that one time. And that was the third time I drank. I had shotgunned 3 beers on a boat, then did 3 shots of tequila, and then lit up a fake Cuban cigar.
That's hilarious.
And,
fake cigar.
Well, fake Cuban, real cigar, but fake Cuban.
I was like, it's hilarious.
Knockoff Cuban cigar. And I got 3 puffs in, and I had to sit down because that same feeling hit. I just managed to do it by having an amazing day and getting pretty fucked up.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah.
It does make sense, though. Like, if you go back to, tribal days, people would have these experiences handed down to them by their ancestors. I personally because there's no such thing as the first human. There's a line in the species where we just start to call the humans something else because we've changed enough shape or whatever. So I think things like this, or, like us eating fruit, that's pre-human. We've been doing that longer than we would call ourselves human. And so it's not a human invention. It's our species invented it, along with all the other species we were related to that had fruit around us. And things like bananas have evolved to be hand-shaped and stuff like that because we're the primates that eat them. It's interesting that this kind of stuff is probably culturally the same thing. Oh, yeah. Like some proto-primate, had an experience and then gave it to their people. And all of a sudden we got stoners getting high on shit.
There's deer that will intentionally seek out and eat fermented fruit that has fallen off of trees.
Right, and those leopards that eat the thing that gets them all fucked up. And yeah, I think it's just they even say that babies, when the babies bang their head against a hard surface, is the human's first attempt to get high, and they do that before they even have full control over their body.
Oh man, if you want to see a baby high,
and do I
milk drunk, a milk drunk newborn, you can't beat that level of euphoria.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, it's like the only thing their body's craving. Oh, look at their toes.
But yeah, and you look at humans will find anything in their environment that will get them high and not kill them immediately.
Oh, even if it kills them immediately, they'll still try it.
Well, they'll try it.
Yeah.
But if it won't kill you immediately, then they will share it.
Yeah.
And there's also the issue of, prior to modern preservation methods, a lot of food.
Oh, that's a good point.
Was, what's the right word? Tainted? Like there was grains with psychedelic mold growing on them for millennia. That's probably where the whole witches concept came from was women getting high, eating grains, and
I think it was just women being together that people hated.
And then trying to get off on a broomstick.
How dare those women? Oh, the broomstick is a recent invention. Well, I mean, it just had a lot. But I mean, there's God, the word source of which that's a whole podcast. But I do think a lot of primitive. Well, as we primitive, we're not using that word, but a lot of earlier versions of mysticism, I think, stem very easily from just being environmentally available. And
intentionally or not.
Well, it wouldn't even matter. I mean, at a certain point, once you know, if something's accessible and it can get you messed up, think of the time when you first started things like cigarettes. They're everywhere. It's so easy to keep getting. I mean, it's way past when you get high off the nicotine and it becomes a requirement. But it's so easy to do. I mean, it would be weird that if the berries you needed to eat to get high were just bloody everywhere.
Yeah.
Be like, it'd be. Also, life is pretty boring for a lot of it. I mean, we pretend it isn't, but there's a lot of waiting around. I can imagine when there's not much to do. What else? I mean, what else are you going to do? Yeah. Look at the same three people? Great. Netflix.
Now, there's also the example of mental states for mystical experiences being created by either mental illness or brain damage, such as is the case with Ellen White, the Adventist prophet who got hit in the head by a rock as a child. She had severe headaches for the rest of her life, was probably epileptic, and those changes in brain states caused by physical brain damage was enough for her to have visions.
Yeah, and once in your brain, if you believe in something, your brain structures things to fit inside the pattern. So if you were already a religious person and you received a head injury, any voices you hear would be angelic or demonic in nature, just because that's the frame that you already see the world through.
Yeah.
Your brain's not going to stretch too far. That's why aliens as a concept, before they existed, people were being taken by demons. And no one gets taken by demons anymore because now they see aliens.
Yeah. And my first mystical experience, I heard God speak to me. I was recovering from an infection from a poisonous spider bite.
Oh, God.
I'd had pneumonia for 3 months and didn't know it.
Wow.
I was on 2.7 grams of antibiotics a day and was really stressing out about what I was going to do for college. And then a voice that was not mine in my head gave me the answer. That was obviously God.
Go deeply into debt.
Yeah.
Here's what you need.
Turn down the free money and go into debt. Yeah. But it's easy now to look back and explain that as that was the sickest I've ever been.
Right.
I was not healthy. And being really not healthy, that's an easy way to not be in your right mind.
Oh, yeah, no. Sickness will amplify anything. Yeah, that makes sense. But I mean, also, just being regularly super religious, I used to hear voices in my head all the time. Or, I mean, what is the...
Is it just attributing subconscious thought to...
Oh, that's what my later ones definitely were. That's what all of them were.
Well, definitely, they're always you. They're always you. It's just that your mind is a stack of noodles, and you can only see so far. So down below,
I love that. My mind is a stack of noodles.
And it's just, you can only see so far and how many the pieces work. And the main voice, the consensus voice, is being driven by you, but it's tethered to your inner parts. And we've codified that and cut it up and tried to determine it. Some of it's nurture, some of it's nature. And I tend to give a lot of empathy to what your natural nature is because I'm naturally a combative person. I've been like that since I was a child. It's ridiculous to think I would be different. So I know those impulses are maybe biological, but they go deep. But there can be things that can stem from inside of you. I mean, and those voices can have voice inside your head without the damage aspect of it, because if your brain's wired a certain way, you're going to have things that can manifest as schizophrenia and other mental health things. But those people legitimately do hear voices, and those voices do come from their own minds. It's just the mind isn't structured on what we would say is a normative way. So even religious people who hear voices are only hearing what part of their brain wants them to hear. And whether that part is in synchronicity or is working together with the rest of their brain, it's hard to tell, because once again, if we're just kind of guessing how you think by how we agree that we all think, and there's no way that Venn diagram is 100% anyway.
Yeah.
So it's just...
Well, and like you look at the stories of prophets of old, it's usually everything is super shitty.
But generally
World
a long
sucks,
time
the
ago,
life
yeah.
sucks. Your entire people are about to be wiped out.
So like today.
Yeah.
Except we have the iPhone.
So you fast and you wander out into the wilderness and probably get severely dehydrated and get overexposed to the elements, and you're starving and
probably have diarrhea again.
Yeah, probably get some diarrhea. And maybe then finally take a snack of food that's gone rancid. Yeah, it's no wonder they're having visions.
Yeah, and then once things get organized and you can become the apprentice of somebody who is a professional witch doctor / stoner who has visions because they bite off a certain root, you just learn how to do it professionally. It's not like you would question it.
Right.
Because in the natural world, especially in an animistic way of looking at the world, anything that it's part of nature is connected to the rest of nature anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely could be seen as excess. It's the way that mysticism is always sold in media, the consumption of such. I mean, I can't personally speak to mystical faith systems, just what I've seen. But like even the Smoke Lodge is a lot of men sitting together in hot steam for a long period of time and attempting to enter an altered state. So I don't even without drugs, it seems like the heat and the dark and the
heat
cultural...
and the sweat.
Yeah, and all the cultural stuff that's in your head. It's an expectation, especially once you're a member of a tribe and it's expected of you to participate in this. It would be really easy, I feel, to enter that state because it was created as a state to be entered into. So I would never, like when I was a correctional officer and we actually had a version of that, I was never outwardly skeptical of the experiences that the men had. It's not like we discussed them, simply because, of course, you're in an altered state right now. It's interesting.
And once you, like, that first experience I had was God talking to me because I was fucked up.
Right.
After that, it was easy to hear that voice.
Yeah,
because I'd already heard
voice.
It.
You gave that voice. Identity within your head, which gave it a license, or that part of your brain license.
Yeah.
Our brain is a cooperative unit. It's not. We frequently like to call it a thing, but it's a lot of neurons working together. And I mean, I don't understand all of it, and we operate as a unit most of the time. But it's pretty easy to go at war with yourself.
Well, what I basically ended up doing was turning the question part of my brain into me, and the answers part of my brain into God.
Right. The sure part of yourself, the one that knew what you were supposed to do. That makes sense. Yeah. I would argue, honestly, now that we're looking at it this way, that being super religious at any point is inherently mystical in an altered state, simply because you choose and force yourself into an emotional belief system where the universe and world operates contrariized to the way that it does. Yeah. They fight so strong, they fight so hard against the natural order of things with the full statement of, no, this is true because I believe. I mean, there are songs that they play in Christian radio that are literally, I believe, statement. Like, it's pretty interesting.
Now, what's one thing that's definitely interesting is Protestant Christianity, Sunni and Shiite Muslims, and Orthodox Conservative and Reform Judaism are all skeptical of mysticism. They,
of course they are.
Right.
It's too accessible.
There aren't prophets now.
Yeah.
That day has ended. So
convenient excuse, by the way. Why aren't there prophets? Oh, we just don't do that anymore. Why? Well, we just don't do that anymore.
Because that won't happen until the end of days.
No, the Mormons still have a prophet.
Yes.
Yeah. And they can be fallible. And technically, the Pope is a direct conduit to God, right?
Catholics are embrace mysticism. Yeah, so that's not problematic for Catholics.
Okay, yeah, they're very rich.
So Protestants rejected mysticism in part as a rejection of Catholicism.
Right. There's a lot to Catholicism they weren't a fan of.
But also, it's a great way of consolidating power, because if you have the people at the top interpreting God's word, then who can argue? But if you have people that are also talking to God, and everybody's talking to God, then everybody can argue about what God says.
It seems like that would be a safer system, though, for the most part. It stabilizes itself.
Well, yeah, it does.
Wait, what do I know? I would probably be crazy.
The Shakers were that way. No leaders.
My father's church was that way. The body. And for those of you who don't remember, it's the body of Christ. There's only 144,000 people that get to go into heaven, but only if you're perfect first. And by perfect, they mean without sin, which you have to do on earth. It's a little crazy. But they call everybody brother, and that's actually where I picked up the habit. And when they go to these big church meetings, anybody can speak.
Yep.
Because not only do they all believe that everyone has a direct path to God, they are Gnostic. So they hammer each other away at their 50 spells.
Yeah.
Or I mean verses, whatever.
But with that, you have no centralized power structure.
Yeah, just very minimal.
Which means no effective control and not a powerful organization.
Right.
When you have, the Catholics over thousands of years created an effective control structure. Same with the Orthodox Church.
That's why they're still there, though.
And that's why they're still there. And they've been able to embrace mysticism, although Catholicism is there is a trend towards shrinking how many people are accepted to be mystics. And what's so interesting with that is the strongest argument for religion is mysticism. It's the only thing that is actually measurably going on in the brain. And that is powerful. It's also very real for the people that are experiencing it.
Yeah.
But if that were actually good evidence of religion, then I would have to lean towards the hippies being right and God being drugs.
The only problem is if you spend any time with anybody who's always on drugs, you would never believe their worldview anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're like, no, I've met you, and I'd rather not be on this train. Thanks.
All right. It is time for a break. Atheist Nomads is proudly brought to you by listeners just like you. You can find out how you can become a patron at patreon.com/atheistnomads. That's patreon.com/atheistnomads. Well, we've already talked about wildfires, but Greece has been enduring horrific and very deadly wildfires.
Yeah, like people dying in town and stuff.
Like people running into the ocean to flee the fires and drowning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, despite the cause of this being well known to be arson, Bishop Ambrosios of the Greek Orthodox Church knows the real reason. Atheist Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras draws the wrath of God. The atheists of Syriza are the causes of the general disaster. Their atheism draws the wrath of God.
They always blame us, though. It's convenient.
Yet just about everyone in Greece disagrees, including the Archbishopric of Athens, which said that was just his personal opinion. Yeah,
that's basically the political way to roll your eyes. Way to distance
yourself.
Well, they're not just going to start a fight that they're going to be like, nah, it's fine. There's always religious extremists. I mean, they blame the gays for stuff in this country, in the 800 Club or whatever you call it, 700 Club. That guy, Pat Robertson?
Yeah.
Yeah, he blames the gays for everything.
Oh, yeah.
I used to have a joke about, because he blamed us for so many different natural disasters, that it was different natural disasters that triggered each event. Like that, that were because the gays caused this, the lesbians caused this kind of a thing. Because they just don't. It's fighting against secularism is one of the primary focuses of the people in religious power. Because because if you lose someone to a religion, it's easy to come back sometimes. But if you lose someone to no faith, it's difficult to get a lot of those people to come back.
Now, this is especially bad in Greece because the Greek Orthodox Church is the state church of Greece.
It is.
And having an atheist running the government, if you are a state-funded church, is not in your best interest.
No.
Now, the Archbishopric of Athens, and I'm sure the Patriarch of Constantinople are probably trying their best to not piss off the prime minister and are
Right.
probably really pissed at this bishop for daring the wrath of the PM.
Maybe. It's just ridiculous. I know there's always people that believe these guys when they say this stuff, but it's so eye-rolly to blame natural disasters on somebody
And this
and
one
their actions.
This one isn't even natural.
Yeah.
It
we
was
know
arson.
Yeah. It's very similar to the argument of like shootings only happen in schools because God isn't in schools, but that excuse doesn't ever show up when shootings happen in churches.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, okay, so God doesn't stop the ones in churches for a different reason. Like, it's just difficult because one of the problems of having a worldview based on a faith system like this is you have to do mental pretzels. Or at least the founding fathers were deists, and they officially believe that, yeah, God exists, but he doesn't do anything for anybody, which is actually a really smart way to be an atheist.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I heard that on some mystery channel I was watching on YouTube. I'm like, you know what? That's right. That would be the easiest intelligent way to be an atheist. Because you'd be like, oh, no, yes. Wink, wink. I do believe in God. Doesn't do anything for us, but he's out there. And technically, you're not a total heathen.
Yeah. All right. A 3-judge panel of the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals upheld the injunction against the Chino Valley Unified School District in California for their prayers, Bible readings, and various proselytizing at school board meetings.
Ew.
Oh, I know. Gross, right?
The district claimed that this was protected by the exception made for traditional prayers in legislative bodies. And the court rejected that claim, saying these prayers typically take place before groups of school children whose attendance is not truly voluntary and whose relationship to school district officials, including the board, is not one of full parity.
Mm-hmm.
Not even close.
That's anytime you have organized religion in enough of the power structure, they rationalize their worldview being the normal one. They try to normalize it. So a lot of their arguments are from a position of their point of view being the only one allowed. So it makes sense to them. Why wouldn't you pray before all government things? Don't you want God to be involved? And we're like, no, we don't know.
Yeah.
Not your God.
They just nobody's, and they just don't get it. That's why they struggle with phrasings like, religious freedom and stuff like that. Because in their mind, religious freedom is the freedom of religions to be free to do what they want. Mm-hmm. They just they can't hear any other translation.
Well, they don't appreciate that as soon as you allow religion into government's going to get involved in religion.
Which is why a lot of progressive or religious groups, some Baptist groups and stuff like that, always get involved. There's religious groups out there that are like, no, we don't want religion because they're not necessarily worried about what's going to happen in this cycle. But 20 years from now, I mean, do you really want a secular government having their fingers inside your church? That seems pretty scary to a lot of people.
Yeah. Passing Sunday laws, restricting
anything,
everything.
I'd feel awkward about the government restricting church access for people. Mm-hmm. I mean, my point of view is if you're an atheist, I want you to get there, with or without information, but you need to get there under your own, agency. I don't like the idea of forcing people into it. That's just weird.
Ah, man. All right. So when school starts in a few weeks in Tennessee, every school will be required to have "In God We Trust" displayed prominently.
Different culture. And yeah, that's what they're doing. Same thing.
Uh-huh.
Just trying to stamp their thing on everything.
And while there's no penalty, WKRN checked with the 4 counties of the Nashville metro area and found that every school will be in compliance by the start of the school year.
Christians in power.
Uh-huh.
They just normalize it. And they, because they also don't realize that God We Trust was put in the 50s. Like, as in there were adults alive that were adults then when that happened. And then, they just... And it's weird because that information is such an easy thing to know. That, it's new. We added that now. Right before the information age started. So you can look it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. And it's such a... This is the problem with a lot of the... this is the problem with mottos. They are inherently meaningless. They are a calling card. They are a torch something to rally around.
Scheme.
Yeah, in one way, it's just a marketing scheme. It's just anything, make America great again, or any change that the Democrats come out with. It's always an emotional keyword. And In God We Trust is the same thing. It doesn't mean anything.
Right. A marketing slogan makes sense for a campaign.
Not your money.
But
well, maybe your money, because you got to believe in it. That's the only way it works.
But trying to set up a motto for 320 million people?
Also, kids don't really give a shit. I think they really overestimate the impact they're having. I mean, they had this stuff out all over the place when we were kids, and it didn't. We did the Pledge of Allegiance every day, and I roll my eyes at it now. Like, it's not like indoctrination sticks to everybody. It's just kind of sad that it does seem to function for a lot of the lowest common denominator.
No, what it does do though is there's a certain elitism for kids who do go to church, who do belong to these families that are religious.
The Christian nationalists
over the other kids.
The Christian nationalists are a big part of the issue that we have in this country right now.
Because I remember, the Christian club at school, they would always have their prayers right in the middle of the hallway.
Yeah, they're cocky like that.
Because they'd block the route, and I just barreled through them with my baritone sax and just...
You do it.
I bruised a couple people doing that. But
they do get offended.
But I'm like, they can't attack me for it because they were breaking the rules in the first place.
Also, turn the other cheek, asshole.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know your religion.
And I would think that, if you have to carry your brother's cloak, shouldn't you not block a fire escape?
Yeah.
Yeah, that does seem... It is just... It's
very cliquey.
It's there's a lot of hubris in that, but it's not... The thing of it is they are taught the path of humility. They are taught that they're being humble, and that blocking the hallway is just a way that you can show people the power of your faith. They don't... Literally, that's how it's phrased to them. I remember all that stuff. They position it in such a way so that it seems like you're under a lot of pressure from the enemy, which is trying to tear you from the loving arms of Christ and an eternal happiness.
Or
when
smacking
in reality,
you upside the head with the saxophone.
Right. When literally it's just a teenager who wants to get the fuck past you, and you're an idiot in her way.
Yeah.
Like, they don't understand. It's not piercing the darkness in every school hallway. But this is what they think it is. Principalities and powers. There's a principle. And hall passes. Relax.
Yeah.
A senior community in St. Louis has denied allowing a lesbian couple who are married and have been together for nearly 40 years to move in, citing their policy that only allows married people to cohabitate, and their policy which defines marriage as, quote, the union of one man and one woman as marriage is understood in the Bible.
Oh, why on earth are they wanting to move there anyway?
Well, because they want to belong with everybody else. They should have a right to do so.
Oh, no, it's specifically, they want to because this is the only senior community that can provide the level of care they are looking for.
Yeah, it seems
planning ahead. And they can do it at no extra cost. They went through many tours. They went through numerous conversations with the staff and paid a $2,000 deposit.
Do they get it back?
Well, they're suing.
Well, they'll probably get it. Yeah, because it violates some HUD thing or another, right?
So they're claiming that this violates the Fair Housing Act and the Missouri Human Rights Act.
Does it? Because I know right now at a federal level, no one cares about gay rights on any level. So does the circuit they're in or the state?
Maybe.
Yeah, because that's dubious. Even a couple years ago, they would have had a stronger position. But right now, as it is... if you can get things to a high enough level of the court, and with Kavanaugh probably going to be on the Supreme Court, they're going to be expanding religious liberties for private and public groups as far as they can.
Yep.
They're going to try to establish a lot of precedents. That's their goal for the next decade or two, is to convince the normalization of Christian standards, which is what they want. So yeah, it's I can't speak to these poor, unfortunate couple, but it does seem like any couple that's been together that long, because I don't know if you remember more than 7 years ago, it probably wasn't that abnormal for this to be happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's frustrating.
In Missouri.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So it sucks. I mean, obviously I'm on their team. It seems like they should live wherever they want to. And it's weird that you would care what an old couple does. But I don't know.
And it's kind of one of those weird things because, conceivably you can have the idea of, if you want, a group of Christian seniors should be able to create a place for them to go. But if you create it to the point that outsiders want to come in, and you're offering a lot more services than that, and there's a shortage of senior housing.
Yeah. It's a dicey one. I mean, laws aside, it does seem like you should be able to create a commune with the structures of the culture that you would like to have if it's not damaging to other people. But when we get to things like the healthcare in this country and like the difficulty can be for seniors to find appropriate care, I struggle saying that you have an ethical responsibility to always allow outsiders into your group because there's a lot of people I don't like. But it does seem kind of weird. It just but here's the thing: if they get any public money, then they lose the argument that they get to privately determine who lives there.
Oh, I'm sure they don't charge for the medical care because they're billing most of it to Medicare.
Yeah, and that's when once society starts to intertangle like that, it's a much more dicey situation.
Oh yeah,
to say that you're going to take advantage of public works, public roads, public hospitals, public, all these things that the public uses, and then go, except in our world, we want a little ball that nobody else can move into. And it's like, well, you don't get to take from the well and not bring anything to it. Like, that's not fair, because at this point in their life, their contributions to society are over. Pretty much. And there's it's like, what is your bargaining chip?
Yeah.
Like, I was a bigot for 50 years, so I don't have to have old queers live around me. That's a weird argument.
Now, I think their argument would probably be a lot better if they restricted residents to members of a certain denomination.
Yeah, I'm even whatever.
But if it's just open to anybody who lives under their Christian, however they define their Christian lifestyle, the looser they define it, the more screwed they are in court.
Yeah, it's difficult. Like, you have to go to this church. But still, I don't know. Once they start accessing public parts of society, it makes me struggle to have any empathy for the position of, well, you're not off the grid. You're on the grid. And once you're on the grid, you're connected to the grid. You don't get to cut access from the grid for other people for reasons that don't... There's not a compelling enough argument other than... Because the real compelling argument is, it makes me feel weird. And that's it. Yeah. And they can cite whatever it is, but at the heart of it, the argument is, I feel gross and I don't like it, because there's a lot in the Bible you're not allowed to do. Now, and they don't make that a big deal.
I also think that at the point that they let them get on the waiting list and took their $2,000,
that sounds like somebody convinced them
that it should have been a done deal at that point.
Well, you don't take $2,000 from somebody if you're gonna fuck them later. I mean, you can if you're going to. That's legal, I think. It should be anyway. But, like, not metaphorically. Like, don't take that $2,000 so that you can be all like, because that's, if it's intentional, it's evil. If it's unintentional, that means that some shady shit went behind closed doors and the decision makers were convinced it would be in their best interest to change their mind.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if I'm managing that property and I'm doing that kind of stuff, we just want things to run well around here. I don't know. I hope they're screwed, but I don't personally have any faith in the legal system of our country right now.
All right. Now we have... Okay, and we aren't going to get to conspiracies.
No, well...
We talked too long about mysticism.
Mysticism is a fascinating subject.
It really is. But that's fine, though.
Everything's a conspiracy, you guys. It's all true. Check out my website, 911didn't happen.911.org.com.
Danny Askney is a trans activist based out of Seattle.
All right.
And she transitioned at the age of 16 in 1998 while a ward of the state in the middle of a sex trafficking case.
Wow.
And the courts
quite a journey.
Sealed all of those records.
Fair.
Yes. She then found that she needed to leave Seattle and spend some time in Sweden. Because
Sweden?
Well, you may think of areas like Portland and Seattle as being these liberal utopias, There is a fuck ton of Nazis in both places.
We're the Proud Boys. Yeah, did we talk about those guys last time?
We have a few.
The Proud Boys are in Northwest, but suspiciously not in Boise yet. I also have friends in Spokane. I don't think I see a lot of them there, but they have a lot of activity in Portland. The mayor of Portland is being very permissive, and it leads, because these guys are armed white nationalists, they lead to conflict with a lot of people.
Well, including, in this case, giving her a bunch of death threats.
Yeah.
So she felt the need to get out of Seattle before one of them kills her.
They don't like activists in general because, and they definitely don't like women. And they're not a big fan of anybody that's trans. So being a trans woman, the thing about being a trans woman for these guys, it is literally, because remember, they use sissification and demasculization as a weapon. Their phrases like cuck and soy boy are all intended to attack your masculinity. It's one of the reasons they struggle with people like me who bring feminine aspects into my space, like, my clothing or makeup or fingernail polish, is their very weapon to use against me is something that I already wear as armament. And that makes it difficult for them. So if you're a female and you're trans and you're an activist, it triggers them in a way that really infuriates them. They don't have a way of dealing with everything that symbolizes everything they hate. And especially if you appear even remotely happy or successful in any way, it undermines their whole worldview, because you basically represent everything that they hate. The only thing that could make you worse is if you were also a person of color. So these guys are real trash. But also, the Northwest has a lot of pockets of white people who are entrenched in a high level of bigotry.
Okay, so that's why she needed to get out of the country.
Good reason.
Her passport had just expired. So she applied for a renewal. So the State Department rejected the application because she had failed to disclose that she was trans.
Weird that that's the subject.
So she got her representative involved, and the State Department issued a 2-year temporary passport, so she is now safely in Sweden.
Good for her.
Janice Rose is a technology researcher who got her passport updated with the legal name and gender marker that was changed in November. Then she got a call last week telling her that the government made a mistake in updating her gender marker because the medical documentation was invalid.
That's so ridiculous.
Why was it invalid? It was signed by a nurse practitioner, not a medical doctor.
Which is weird, because you can get most things from a nurse practitioner.
And this clinic, the letter they gave her to send with her change application to the State Department, many of their patients have used that same boilerplate letter signed by the same nurse practitioner without any issue.
Except with the person who makes the determination has changed. Underlying issues of why does it matter? Why does anyone care? Even having a gender on a passport seems ridiculous, because you don't do, with our current understanding and usage of gender, it is meaningless now. Just be human might be the next thing that you're going to have on there. And before too many decades, we might add Earth or Mars as a planetary designation, but who gives a crap about the rest of it?
I think it's not worthwhile to have on passports, just because it is an additional marker to be able to confirm identity.
No, because if you're non-transitional, how does that...
Which is why this creates the issue. If it is a valid marker for identity, and you are a trans woman who presents as a woman, and your paperwork says that you are a male, that is going to confuse people.
Yeah, that's why you get rid of the label. It's the easiest thing to fix. You just don't care, because your name's the same, your social security number is the same. Why is the NEN thing is like, well, what you got between your legs? Like, that's just a weird jump. I already know. I can scan my iris on my phone to unlock it. Why do I need to know what's anything lower? Like, it doesn't matter. We don't use it to identify who we are. It's just it's an archaic means of codification, because men used to mean something and women didn't. And now that that's not the case anymore, we're arguing over the men mean something women didn't thing past when it does. It's just, so, yeah, who gives a shit? So it's a who gives a shit question that becomes a roadblock for somebody's free ability to travel. So her freedoms are impeded upon because somebody's like, well, she didn't check the right box on gender identification or trans identification. It's just ridiculous.
Well, what box?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, in the case of Janice, she sent the paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
Danny didn't because she never had.
Right.
Her passport had her as Danny Askney, had her as female.
Right.
Everything was fine. Somebody looked her up, discovered that she's trans.
See, that's just suspect.
It was like,
too.
Why didn't you disclose this?
Well, who gives it?
Where does it ask?
Goddamn business. It's none of your business. Is why you didn't get told because it's not a point that matters.
When you fill out paperwork, when you fill out a government form, you fill out the fucking form.
Yeah.
You don't add anything that isn't asked because you fill out the fucking form.
Right.
And not disclosing something that they aren't asking.
Well, that's silly. Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
You can't expect someone to defend a negative like that. Well, why didn't you bring me spaghetti? I don't know. Fuck you. That's why. Like, well, you needed to bring me spaghetti if you really wanted to go to Sweden. I'm like, I don't. Yeah, just it doesn't naturally follow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just what it is. Once again, a Christian nationalist trying to determine for somebody else what normalization is when we should be past the codifier. It's like, okay, sure, whatever. Like, I call you what you want me to call you because I'm not a prick. And if I fuck up and you tell me to change it, I will change it. And that's how society should function. It's very no drama. If I make a mistake, you go, oh, actually, I do this. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And that's that. Why are we? Yeah. I just.
Yep. Now, I think
struggle with this.
I'm going to guess what they're. In Janice's case, the policy probably refers to physician.
Mm-hmm.
Which in modern usage, physician is generally a generic for a medical provider, either a mid-level or top-level provider. Technically, physician means a medical doctor.
I think any reasonable person seeing a nurse practitioner signing off is that. I mean, in this case, there's nothing a doctor would be able to determine that a nurse practitioner wouldn't.
Right.
Yeah, like, so there's no real reason why that delineation matters at all.
And if necessary, the nurse practitioner might refer out to an endocrinologist. And if the nurse practitioner can handle the care, then why refer it out?
Well, exactly. You try to keep all your care in-house anyway. Yeah. It
is ridiculous, and it's intentionally discriminatory.
Exactly, which is garbage, but they'll get away for it for a little while.
Mm-hmm. All right, so a few months ago, Attorney General Jeff Sessions,
my favorite,
announced his Religious Liberty Task Force.
Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III.
And now, at the Justice Department's Religious Liberty Summit,
he said some shit.
This is a Religious Liberty Summit put on by the United States Department of Justice.
First of all, in case we all forgot, Sessions is racist.
Mm-hmm.
He's been a racist for a long time, and he is the Attorney General.
Yes.
He is literally the boss of the law department in the government, the federal government. And his department determines what laws and bureaucratic rules need to be followed. That's his job. And he is openly on record repeatedly saying stuff like this.
Now, we can safely assume that he is not a member of the KKK because he likes Catholics.
I mean, at this point, I'm not going to say anybody's not. But
he hates atheists, and he hates gays, and he hates women.
Anything that subverses the natural order, yeah. Yeah, and his version of Christianity is the white male at top, and he's very open about all this, and the white Christian man, and then anybody who's those three things is closer to the bullseye, and the more that you're not, the further away you are from what he gives a shit about. So white women are pretty close because you need those to make more white men.
Yep.
But women of color, pretty far out. Women of color who aren't Christian, might as well be garbage.
Yeah.
And atheists, well, the non-religious thing, because he is also a Christian nationalist.
Yep.
A lot of big thread through your episode today. He sees what they call the advancement of secular behavior. And there's been a lot of scare. like Focus on the Family has always been big about this. 700 Club, any of the Christian pundits talk a lot about war on Christmas, war on Christianity, because they like to boost the Christian following they have into a fervor, because you can get, they're trying to get people out to vote and trying to get people out there, and they're beating the drums and the things like the gays and the people of color and immigrants.
Well, let's actually listen.
Do we have it? Sweet.
Oh, yeah.
A dangerous movement, undetected by many, but real, is now challenging and eroding a great tradition of religious freedom. There can be no doubt, it's no little matter, it must be confronted intellectually and politically and defeated. This past election, and much that has flowed from it, gives us a rare opportunity to arrest these trends and to confront them.
That's pretty freaky.
Well, he's talking about the Johnson Amendment.
Uh-huh.
And you know, of course, what it is. But the Johnson Amendment is the amendment named after LBJ back when he was a senator. This is an old rule that basically says that people in the pulpit and 513Cs and stuff like that can't tell you who to vote for.
And it's called an amendment not because it's an amendment to the Constitution, but it's an amendment to the tax law. Yeah,
it was an amendment to the tax law. So, but here's the thing underlying, and this is why this is a red herring. They don't defend that law, and nobody enforces it.
Right.
The law literally says that churches can't tell you who to vote for, but even if it happens, even if it's reported, no one does anything. It's like almost never. I don't even know if it's ever had a real court case or anyone's been persecuted. It doesn't get pushed, especially now.
Yeah.
I mean, look at how far they're pushing religion into government. It's a natural because they see government and church being intertwined. Which is why he's talking about God stuff as a government official.
The last case they brought was probably under either the Clinton or Bush administration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And sometimes things are very adamant, but the idea being, and once again, there are progressive and left-leaning religious groups who are for this law, is they like the idea of there being a big wall between church and state, because they know that things will flow both ways.
Mm-hmm.
And someone who gains their power in the state through the church can thereby turn around and control the church. And all these things have happened historically.
Oh, yeah.
There's a reason why our founding fathers were like, no, it's okay. The Quakers can hang out. They can't tell their people who to vote for. And this was made rules later. But yeah, it's always been at the heart of our democracy that your faith is allowed and encouraged, but it's not allowed to change the course of our government.
All right, so we got a little bit more.
Such a reversal will not just be done with electoral victories, however, but by intellectual victories. We've gotten to the point where courts have held that morality cannot be a basis for law, where ministers are fearful to affirm, as they understand it, Holy Writ from the pulpit, and where one group can actively target religious groups by labeling them hate groups. There can be no doubt that we are stronger as a nation because of the contribution of religious people.
So the specific problems are the Johnson Amendment,
Mm-hmm.
gay marriage.
Yeah, well, you always hated the gays.
The Southern Poverty Law Center.
And that's the one who labeled Focus on the Family as a hate group, and other religious groups because they're hate speech against the queer community for the most part.
And so secularists, gay rights activists, anti-bigot activists, Southern Poverty Law Center, are the bad guys, and the good Christians are the good guys.
Well, of course, yeah.
And that's in the mind of our nation's highest law enforcement officer.
He is openly religious with his government involvement, and he was before, and he always will be again. These guys, a lot of these guys have just been like this for so long, and they're so tolerated in their districts because of a variety of reasons, but a lot of it is just the way their districts are put together and jerry-rigged so that they can, stay in office forever. That to him, it is normal to speak like this. He really, I believe in his heart of heart, our Attorney General believes that anti-Christian forces can erode the power of the U.S. government, because he also believes that the power of the U.S. government is tied directly to its connection to the church.
Yeah.
So he's speaking from, he's a true believer, which makes him dangerous, But I mean, he's saying is like we can't win things democratically. When he says intellectual, what he means is we have to be tricky, we have to be sneaky, we have to make moves to try to remove the ability of people to stop us.
Well, and when he giving those three ways of winning, the winning electorally, so getting control of Congress and the presidency, winning in the courts means getting control of the courts with Christian nationalists. So at that point, you've got control of all three branches of government. And then try to convince everybody that the gays are icky.
Yeah, and a lot of that just comes from not being familiar with anything, and they're just told that this stuff is icky.
And how are you going to win that one intellectually?
Well, I mean, I just think it's a power word. It's a power move. I mean, it's not a bad written speech. I mean, if you have an issue with, like, you know, him saying that morality can't be the basis of law, it's him saying that the only version of morality is the Christian one. Because he's defining the words by his usage of them. He has basically created a strawman argument of saying that, well, if you don't let us make the rule, your laws are inherently immoral. And that's weird, because if you're making a moral argument, you can do it without the approach of dogma or without the appeal to authority. You should be able to make a rational argument why something's moral or immoral. I mean, for instance, racism was defended with the Bible for a very long time.
Oh, yeah.
Because slaves are in the Bible. It's normalized. Prophets and people who talk about slavery are very pro-slavery, simply because it was a normal part of how society functioned back then.
Yeah.
So...
Oh, and Christians are fighting for marriage to be between one man, one woman, saying that's biblical marriage. No, that's Christian marriage. That is not biblical.
And it's modern Christian marriage, because their religion has histories with other things as well.
Like one man and many women.
Which is fairly normal. For a long time for rich dudes to collect women like a dragon hoards treasure.
And if you set up a definition of marriage based on Muslim morals, it's one man and up to 4 women, if he can afford that many.
There's a lot of ways to put a society together, but to make the statement that your way of doing it right now is the only way that is pleasing to the God who previously allowed other ways to be is kind of silly. It's very cherry picky. I've always wondered about that. I mean, at its heart, you're like, well, currently, yeah, but Jesus himself didn't ever get married. Yeah, like even Paul said it's good not to have a lady if you can get away with it.
Well, and what's crazy is Jeff Sessions is a Methodist. He's in trouble with the Methodist Church for his actions in office.
With a child endangerment. I mean, like, it's an interreligious thing. He basically got censured by his own faith.
But the Methodist Church doesn't even want Christianity defining government.
Well, you can belong to a church and not adhere.
Oh, man, the ridiculous theocratic bullshit. And there were atheists who thought Trump wouldn't be that bad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, atheists aren't necessarily any more intelligent than anyone else. Sorry, guys. I mean, some of them are, but there are nerds in every camp. Yeah. As I previously pointed out, if smart people didn't disagree, we wouldn't have disagreements. We would just ask the smart people who are all of a sudden in consensus, and that's not the case. There are smart people on the sides of most arguments. Not the flat earth theory, but most arguments have intelligent people. Well,
and if you look at it, people like to, in the atheist community, a lot of people will ridicule theological education as being fake. Okay, yeah, you're studying bullshit.
Yeah.
But
you can still know a lot about it.
You have to be smart to pass Greek.
Oh, yeah. I mean... Yeah, it's ridiculous. And there's few things more intellectually interesting than listen to Bible scholars argue theology by bringing in what the semantics is in the religion it was originally written as. Yeah. Because you're entering deep nerd zone, and it's like, well, what this meant in the original Greek, and it's like, fuck, I'm out.
Yeah, dummies don't do that.
No, I mean, they're a smart group. I had a lot of friends like that, and even just talking theology at a deep level, it's very, I mean, listen to any fan base. Once the Harry Potter nerds get real deep into Harry Potter, you're just lost. Or the people who've read every Star Wars book. And it's just like, it's the same thing with religion. Once you hit a certain part of the nerd forest, you have to have enough accessibility even to follow the conversations. Because the things that they're discussing are just...
All right, it is time for a break, and then we have some little bit of feedback, and then one story that was supposed to lead into a bigger discussion that patrons might get, because we'll see.
We'll see.
We love hearing from our listeners. You can email us at contact@atheistnomads.com, tweet us at atheistnomads, send us a message on our Facebook page at facebook.com/atheistnomads, or better yet, call us and leave us a message at 541-203-0666. We might even play it on the show. You can also help us out by leaving us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcast directory of choice. From Jimmy Ninetoes.
That's not your real name.
No, it's not. If it was, I wouldn't be saying Jimmy Ninetoes.
Yeah, right.
Hey, Dustin, I just wanted to say thanks for having Mike Wiseman on. His podcast, The Bible Says What, is phenomenal. I've been looking for more podcasts. It doesn't help that I'm very picky, so I just want to say thank you. Great show and episode as usual. Well, thank you, Jimmy. It was a lot of fun. Turns out that people named Mike or some variant of Mike tend to be fun to talk to.
Aw, so sweet.
Okay, so YouTube has removed some of Alex Jones's videos and suspended temporarily his streaming rights. Facebook has also removed some of his videos and suspended his streaming rights temporarily.
Oh my God.
For hate speech.
So, I mean, yeah, obviously, like, have you heard the guy talk? He is a conspiracy theorist who causes people to make aggressive acts. He finds people who are already in a bad place mentally, and he gives them a system of fear and hate to believe in.
Right.
He is the very definition of hate speech a lot of the time.
He's the one who spread the Pizzagate idea.
Yeah.
That led to a man walking into a pizza joint with an AK-47.
Mm-hmm.
Or, sorry, AR-15. Yeah, that's
so crazy.
And he demanded to see the basement that didn't exist.
Right?
So, now this brings up a question that... Because, Mikey, Facebook has put you in jail.
Oh, yeah, all the time. I'm good with it.
And they put Alex Jones in jail. Now, they're not suspending his ability to post videos, just... It's a strike on... streaming.
And you get so many. You only get so many before you're permanently
okay, so
banned,
on YouTube, what's interesting is he got one a few months back.
Yeah.
But this one came just after the previous strike expired.
Well, he is a revenue stream also. YouTube has made some notorious decisions lately in the YouTubing community, and they've tried to change some stuff affecting religious, as some of the atheists, the vidcasts and stuff on there have had their effect. I don't know. It's an evolving medium for the creator. But a guy like Alex Jones has an empire built on fear and hate. And this is just one of the many Hydra heads that is his machine. You know, and these guys, you know, and then there are varieties of them, like the Glenn Becks. They have their moments in the sun, but their very unstable nature always causes them to melt down. They always go too far. They always form the wrong opinion. I mean, he's turned... Didn't he turn on Trump at some point?
Yeah, I believe so.
Probably. I mean, It's just... They're unhinged by definition. Oh, yeah. And the things they come up with aren't even tangentially connected. Like, the Pizzagate thing was that the Democrats were in control of and knew of a child prostitution ring in the basement of a local pizza shop.
Yep. And it was Hillary Clinton specifically ran it.
Well, because she's the demon that they hate the most. And if you just heard somebody say that on the street, you'd be like, it sounds like something you'd make up in a board game. Like you spin the wheels or you throw darts at a board. That doesn't even sound real.
Right.
But they believe it. They get there.
Most of us laughed.
Because it's ridiculous.
One guy didn't, so he grabbed his assault rifle.
And not just one guy.
And went to check it out.
Yeah, a lot of people agree with it. And it gets passed off as truth in certain boards because they're very insular. And it's a lot of these things about the left, it's why there's people out there who will still swear on their mother's grave that the Clintons have been getting people murdered. Because if anyone they know dies, it was their fault.
Well, and when you have a conspiracy with a true believer of the conspiracy,
you can't have a conversation.
Using Pizzagate as an example, a guy shows up with a gun, says, "Show me your basement."
There's no basement.
There's no basement. That's obviously what somebody would say if they're hiding the basement where the illegal activity is going on.
Oh, yeah, they're already... I mean, if you've already gotten to the point where you convinced yourself you're going to bring a gun to find out the real truth, you are beyond stages of sanity. You are on a whole new shit. Like, that is not... You are in an altered state, my friend. You are not ready to go.
How do you keep from getting killed in that situation? Because you can't provide the evidence that the person is looking for, and any denial helps prove the conspiracy.
Yeah, the problem with dealing with that level of aggression and madness at the same time is you don't. I mean, your fight or flight tendencies take over. You just do the first instinctual thing you can. And at that point...
And hope the cops show up quickly.
Well, you can't even put your... Well, I mean, the cops just shot another hostage in L.A. like they did a few weeks ago because somebody was being held with a knife and they shot the wrong person. And obviously none of this is intentional, but, I mean... it's just a high level of chaos to enter into your life without warning.
Yeah.
And I think even working at a place that was being spun would cause trauma and like anxiety in a lot of people. If they were a significant segment of even only a few hundred people who believed your workplace was run by pedophiles, I don't think I'd be comfortable going into work every day.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't take that many crazy people to ruin your life.
Yeah.
And this guy did that.
Yeah.
And no accountability. And that's our infatuation with our misunderstanding of the First Amendment, which a lot of us casuals believe the First Amendment gives us the right to say whatever we want whenever we want to. And it doesn't. It's not even implied.
No.
This is a pro-social thing in that we don't want the government or any structure or power of the government to determine what is accessible and normal for you to say.
All right, here's a great example. I had a case years back where a Christian gentleman was trying to proselytize to a man who had a needle in his arm.
Yeah, good timing, bro.
Captive audience. And it started to escalate.
Shocking.
Which is how we end up getting into the situation with a pagan, a Christian, a Jew, and an atheist. All trying to keep a fight from happening.
So crazy.
I had to get the Christian out because he was the bad guy. He was threatening to sue. It never happened, but I still had to notify my regional of the situation since mention of a lawyer came up. But he was claiming I was violating his First Amendment right to freedom of religion.
Because he doesn't know what it means.
He was on private property in a business, and no, he did not have any First Amendment rights there.
Well, the government's not here telling you to shut up.
Because
like
I was representing a private corporation, not the government.
You hear that occasionally with really drunk people when you're a bouncer, when you're telling someone they can't yell that stuff. Like, it's a free country. It's a free country and you're leaving now. Like, Americans have a lot of these things drilled into their head without a true understanding of what they mean. And it gives a lot of people a sense of entitlement. Like, well, I could say what I want to say. This is America. And it's like, yeah, but I mean, there are consequences. That's not even a good ethical position. Like, You're not supposed to punch someone because they call you the wrong word. But as a neutral observer, if you call somebody the wrong enough word, I'm not going to blame them for punching you in the face. That was one of the things that could happen to you.
Mikey, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
And those of you who didn't notice, Lauren disappeared.
Baby and dog issues. Dog has brain damage.
Yes, he does.
Poor buddy. I love that poor dummy.
All right. And listeners, remember, not all those who wander are lost. Thank you for listening to another episode of Atheist Nomads. You can find show notes and contact information at atheistnomads.com. Follow us on Twitter at Atheist Nomads and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/atheistnomads. Please subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcatcher of choice, and while you're there, feel free to leave us a review. Theme music is courtesy of Sturdy Fred. Until next time, this has been the Atheist Nomads.